All right, so you know how we flip a light switch and just expect the lights to turn on? Or how about plugging in our phones and needing them to charge? We rely on electricity for pretty much everything.
It's true. We take it for granted until the power goes out.
Exactly. And that's what makes the work of power production plant operators so essential. They're the ones working behind the scenes, often literally, to keep those lights on and those phones charged. So in today's deep dive, we're going to really dig into what these folks actually do and if it's a career path you, the listener, should consider.
Sounds fascinating. I'm eager to learn more. No, I don't think much about where my power comes from, honestly.
Well, get ready to be enlightened. We've got a ton of great info from RoleCatcher, their career guide, some interview insights, and even a peek at the job market for this role.
Great. Let's get into it.
Let's. Now, when you think about a power production plant operator, what comes to mind?
Honestly. I kind of picture someone just pushing buttons and watching gauges all day.
Yeah, that's a pretty common misconception. But it's way more involved and way more crucial than you might think. They're the heartbeat of any facility that generates electricity. And it's not just monitoring equipment, they are managing these very complex systems. They're troubleshooting issues, often under intense pressure, all while making sure the output of energy is consistent and sustainable, which is something RoleCatcher really highlighted.
So not just turning on a turbine and calling it a day, huh?
Definitely not. Think of it more like this. A surgeon needs to know how the entire circulatory system works, not just where the heart is, right?
Right.
Operators need that same deep understanding of the power generation process, especially as more renewable energy sources are integrated into the grid, like wind and solar. The guide really emphasized how that's a huge area of growth for the field.
So you're saying you can't just plug a solar farm into the grid and call it a day, huh?
Not even close.
Yeah.
That's where the real demand is. Operators who understand both traditional and renewable energy systems.
Fascinating. So that image of, the old grimy power plant with guys shoveling coal, that's a thing of the past.
Well, not entirely. The work environment really varies.
I see.
Some facilities are incredibly high-tech, others are more traditional, and the guide mentioned that they can be located anywhere from like bustling cities to remote rural areas.
I would have never thought about that.
Yeah. But one thing's for sure, this isn't a desk job.
Yeah.
The RoleCatcher guide made that very clear. It can be very physically demanding and even hazardous.
Yeah, that makes sense. You're working with some heavy equipment.
Exactly. And potentially high voltage, sometimes working in those really confined spaces, sometimes at heights.
Not for the faint of heart.
Definitely not. And that's why safety protocols and training are so important in this role.
So you're saying this job isn't for everyone, but for those who are cut out for it, the rewards could be worth the risks.
Potentially. And let's not forget the collaborative side of things. The typical interactions section in the RoleCatcher guide really highlighted how operators are constantly working with other people, engineers, technicians, even regulatory agencies.
Oh, wow. So strong communication skills are probably just as important as knowing how to handle a wrench.
For sure. You're part of a team, often a very specialized team, so being able to clearly convey information, problem solve on the fly, that's all part of the job.
Okay, so we've talked about how hands-on it is, but the guide also mentioned the rise of renewable energy, and you touched on this earlier, but I'm wondering, how's that changing what employers are looking for?
It's huge. Think about it with a wind turbine, right? It's not just a giant fan, it's a whole complex system.
Yeah.
There are generators, gearboxes, and these really sophisticated control systems.
Oh, wow.
Operators who can troubleshoot these things on the fly are worth their weight in gold.
So knowing how to work in a traditional power plant isn't enough anymore.
Yeah.
You need that specialized skill set for renewables.
Yeah.
Right, so it's more than just knowing the basics now.
Yeah.
What does that look like, those specialized skills?
Well, let's take solar farms as an example.
Okay.
You've got thousands of panels, each one generating power a bit differently depending on the weather.
Right.
Operators need to understand how to optimize that energy output. They're using things like predictive software and doing real-time data analysis. It's pretty incredible.
Wow. That's a far cry from just watching a pressure gauge, huh?
You could say that again. And then there's energy storage. The RoleCatcher guide mentioned this is another booming area.
Oh, yeah. Energy storage is huge right now.
Whether we're talking about those massive battery systems or pumped hydro operators who know how to work with these and integrate them into the grid, high demand.
Definitely. It sounds like if you want to work in this field, lifelong learning is a must.
Oh, absolutely. This industry is constantly evolving. In fact, the RoleCatcher guide actually had a whole section on future trends that I thought was really interesting.
Okay, I'm really curious now. What's in the crystal ball? What should people be prepared for if they want a career that will last?
One word: microgrids.
Microgrids.
Yeah. Imagine localized power grids. We could be talking like neighborhood level that can operate on their own or in sync with the main grid.
So instead of getting power from those huge power plants miles away, communities would generate and manage their own energy.
Exactly.
Wow.
And that requires a different kind of operator, someone who understands power generation, sure, but also distribution, all that smart grid technology, and how to keep energy supply and demand balanced, but at a much smaller, localized scale.
That's wild. It seems like you need way more technical skills to succeed, but they're also more diverse.
You hit the nail on the head. The future belongs to those operators who can work across those different energy sources, the traditional and those emerging technologies.
This is all great information for anyone even thinking about this career.
You're right.
It's not just about right now, but thinking about where the industry's going.
Absolutely. And speaking of the future, the guide also highlighted career progression. You're not stuck in one role forever.
Right, right. You can move up.
Yeah, the guide laid out a pretty clear path from entry level all the way up to senior operator.
Which makes sense. You start at the bottom and learn as you go. But I'm guessing those higher level positions are going to require more than just years on the job.
For sure. Let's take senior operator as an example.
Okay.
They're not just handling those day-to-day operations, they're the ones making the strategic decisions. We're talking maintenance, resource allocation, even long-term planning for the entire plant.
So they're thinking about the big picture, not just keeping the lights on today, but 5, 10 years down the line.
Exactly. And to get to that level, it's a combination of things. Of course, you need the hands-on experience, specialized training, and increasingly, you've got to have those leadership skills.
It's about moving from doing the actual work to leading the people who do the work, which is a big shift.
It is. That's where those soft skills come in, you know? Being able to communicate effectively, managing a team, even negotiating with vendors, those become just as important as that technical side.
So it's that mix of hard and soft skills we hear so much about these days, sounds like.
It really is. And don't forget about certifications. The guide really emphasized those. Staying up to date on those industry standards and regulations, that's huge.
So it's not just what you learn in school, but showing you're committed to always learning more.
Yes.
I like that.
And those certifications, like that certified power plant operator, the CPPO, or any that are specifically for renewable energy, those can really make a difference in your career.
For sure. So we've talked about the job, but how do you actually get your foot in the door?
Right. How do you actually land a job? Well, luckily, RoleCatcher gave us some really great interview insights.
Even better. Let's hear it.
It's one thing to talk about, microgrids and all this cool future tech, but it makes you think. How do we make sure the power grid, whether it's local or national, is reliable but also sustainable?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it?
Right.
And I don't think there's just one answer, but the RoleCatcher guide had this point that really stuck with me. It's not just about fancy new technology. It's about a whole new way of thinking, you know?
Okay, I'm interested. What does that mean for the people actually doing the work in those power plants, the operators?
It's about shifting from reacting to problems as they pop up to anticipating challenges and optimizing everything for efficiency. And always being on the lookout for ways to make the plant's impact on the environment smaller.
So it's that shift we were talking about earlier, going from just doing the work to leading and innovating.
Exactly. Picture an operator who's like, hey, if I adjust the angle of this turbine during certain wind conditions, we could actually get more energy and reduce wear and tear.
Oh.
They're not just being technical, they're thinking big picture.
And that kind of thinking, that focus on sustainability, it's not just good for the planet, it's good for business too.
Oh, absolutely. Lowering energy waste, cutting down on emissions, those things mean saving money and having a stronger bottom line. Companies are starting to see that sustainability isn't just about good PR, it's good strategy.
So for someone listening who's thinking, okay, I'm interested, I could see myself doing this, what's the best way to get started?
Well, the RoleCatcher guide was pretty clear about this one. You need a solid foundation in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. Whether you get a 2-year technical degree or you go all in on a 4-year engineering degree, that base knowledge is crucial.
And I'm guessing real-world experience is important too. Are internships a good way to go?
Internships are fantastic. A lot of power plants have them. Some even have volunteer opportunities.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it gives you a chance to really see what the work is like, network with people, ask questions, and figure out if it's the right fit.
And once you're in, how do you stand out? What advice would you give to someone just starting out who wants to have a really successful career as a power production plant operator.
Never stop learning. The energy industry is changing so rapidly, so be curious, find mentors, and really grab onto any chances to learn new skills.
So those certifications we talked about, those are a really good way to show you're all about growing professionally, right?
Exactly. And don't underestimate networking. Go to those industry conferences, join organizations, connect with people who are doing the work you want to do, because you never know where those connections might lead.
It's about those relationships, sharing what you know, and remembering we're all working together towards the same goal, a brighter and more sustainable energy future.
Well said.
This has been an incredible deep dive. We've gone from simply flipping a light switch to exploring the intricate and ever-changing world of power production. If you're feeling inspired by this career path, and we hope you are, be sure to check out RoleCatcher. They've got everything you need to kickstart your job search and plug into a future that's electric. Literally. Thanks for listening, everyone.